The sound of hurried footsteps echoed through the golden corridor. Yet, inside the opulent palace, the billionaire Sheikh's heart beat in a lonely rhythm, only broken by the weight of a secret he dared not share. Tonight, power meant nothing if it couldn't shield him from the emptiness clawing at his soul. Dubai's sprawling skyline shimmered beneath a twilight sky, the vast desert cooling quietly beyond the city's glimmering towers. Within the towering palace walls, silk curtains danced softly in the warm breeze, carrying scents of sandalwood and exotic spices. Crystal chandeliers glittered like captured stars, promising a world of unimaginable wealth. But all that glitter couldn't reach the sigh escaping the billionaire's lips. Far from this glittering fortress, Layla clutched her worn basket, eyes scanning the crowded market with fatigue as thick as the afternoon sun. Every coin counted. Each errand for her 3 little ones was a burden etched in quiet worry. The aroma of dates and fragrant herbs mingled with the hustle, but her mind was elsewhere, focused on the stubborn ache in her stomach and the ever-present fear of not providing enough. Her hands trembled, counting coins with painstaking care, as a merchant haggled loudly over the cost of fresh bread. Pride and desperation warred within her. Pride that forbade begging. Desperation threatening to shatter her resolve. "Please, just a little more time," she murmured. But the man's patience had limits. A shadow brushed past. The billionaire Sheikh, his face hidden beneath a simple keffiyeh and sunglasses, watched from the edges of the market. The glitter of his usual world was replaced by dusty streets and honest struggles. A world so far from his own, it should have been invisible. But something in Layla's quiet strength, the way she bit her lip instead of giving in, sparked a flicker inside him he had long denied. Without a second thought, he stepped forward and dropped a small bag of coins into her basket. "Sheikh!" Layla's voice caught, startled, unsure, heart pounding in a strange rhythm. The great man, known for ruthless deals and icy control, offering kindness? It felt unreal. His eyes met hers briefly, a fragile vulnerability slipping past the veil of power. "Let this be a burden you do not carry alone," he said softly, voice low enough only for her to hear. For a moment, the market seemed to still, as if time itself hesitated, watching 2 worlds collide. Layla's gaze lingered, a flicker of gratitude and something else, curiosity, burrowing in beneath her fear. But just as quickly as he appeared, the Sheikh turned away, refuge found again behind shadows, the comfort of anonymity restoring itself. As she tucked the coins away, a figure emerged from the crowd, a sharp-eyed man in dark robes, watching the Sheikh with cold calculation. The billionaire's brow tightened imperceptibly. Familiar danger brushed against this rare moment of humanity. The marketplace's colorful chaos masked a silent storm brewing beneath rich silk and dusty streets. Before the next secret of this opulent emirate unfolds, make sure you're part of our caravan of stories. Many destinies are yet to be woven, and I don't want you to miss a single moment. Leave a like if your heart has already been touched by this Sheikh's mystery. Tell me in the comments, from which city are you following this saga? And what twist do you think is coming next? Your passion for these dramas inspires us to keep going. Thank you for being with us. The sharp-eyed man's gaze lingered for a heartbeat longer than comfort allowed, before he melted back into the weaving shadows of the bustling market. The billionaire Sheikh's fingers tightened imperceptibly against the worn fabric of his keffiyeh, a rare flicker of anxiety threatening the calm he so carefully curated. Inside the palace, the grandeur was suffocating. Massive pillars carved from marble stretched like silent sentinels under ceilings so high their crystal chandeliers seemed moons suspended in a celestial dance. Yet the luxury felt brittle, a fragile shell around the isolation that gnawed at the Sheikh's soul. He retreated to the chamber reserved for private council, where the scent of jasmine and oud hung heavy, and the walls absorbed all secrets whispered within. Tonight, power was just an empty throne, a crown too heavy for a heart collapsing under silence. The memory of Layla's hesitant eyes and trembling hands clung to him more fiercely than any contract or decree he could impose. A part of him recoiled at his own impulsiveness, bridging two worlds as different as desert sands and city lights, but another part dared to hope. The distant echo of footsteps summoned the chief advisor, a wolf of the court, with eyes sharp as desert knives. He bowed, his expression unreadable, but the glint in his eyes was a language the Sheikh understood all too well. The market is rarely quiet when the Sheikh walks among commoners, the advisor said, voice low yet tinged with something deeper. Warning or concern, the Sheikh could not tell. Let fear not blind us, the Sheikh replied, eyes hardening. Layla's strength is a thread I will not sever so easily. Meanwhile, Layla hurried through the narrow alleys of the souk, weaving between stalls where colors exploded like fireworks against the dusty backdrop. Though each step was measured with exhaustion, her heart pounded with a mixture of curiosity and caution. Who was this mysterious man who had chosen kindness over indifference? A man shrouded not only in gold and power, but in enigma. Her thoughts spiraled as she clutched the coins close, a lifeline that whispered promises she dared not believe. Her mind wandered to her children, their innocent laughter, a fragile melody she fought to preserve amidst the turmoil of poverty and pride. The weight of responsibility bent her back, but never broke her spirit. Yet questions burned hotter than the desert sun. Why had the Sheikh appeared? Why now? That evening, the palace buzzed with the spectacle of opulence. A private gathering summoned the elite, the glittering stars of diplomacy and deceit woven into silks and jewels. The Sheikh, a man both feared and admired, remained a figure carved from ice and fire. He moved through the crowd with practiced grace, yet his thoughts were anchored far from the swirling festivities. Layla's soft defiance haunted the space between laughter and whispered secrets. A subtle presence brushed past him. Amir, a close confidant, cloaked not only in loyalty, but in ambition. His eyes gleamed with calculation. The market encounter was no accident. Amir murmured beside the Sheikh's ear, voice the silk-coated dagger. Such acts of charity, they stir more than whispers. The court watches, and so do our enemies. The Sheikh's jaw clenched, the familiar coil of danger tightening around his heart. Every kindness carved vulnerabilities into the armor he wore so fiercely. Back in the modest quarters Layla called home, the night settled like a calm before a storm. Candlelight flickered against cracked walls, casting dancing shadows over the worn faces of her children, asleep in fragile peace. Her hands trembled as she prepared the meager supper, eyes distant as memories of the Sheikh mingled with the harsh reality pressing down on her slender shoulders. Could a man like him ever understand a world sculpted by struggle, not gold? Yet, beneath the exhaustion, a defiant ember sparked, an unfamiliar hope that maybe, just maybe, their lives were about to converge in ways neither dared to imagine. The morning sun would bring with it new challenges. Whispers from the palace, the tightening grip of power struggles, and the stirring of secrets best left buried. But in that fragile moment, Layla dared to dream of a path where strength met compassion, and where love might bloom amid the shifting sands of fate. As the first light painted the horizon, a shadow darker than night crept through the palace halls. Hidden behind a carved column, the sharp-eyed stranger observed with a cruel smile. "What you do not know will destroy you, Sheikh," he whispered into the silence. Fingers curling around a sealed letter, etched with a crest that promised ruin. The palace fell into silence once more, but the storm had already begun to gather, and somewhere, far beyond the glittering towers and silent deserts, Layla's world was about to shatter. The sharp-eyed man disappeared into the shadows of the bustling market like a ghost melting into the desert night. Yet the weight of his presence lingered in the billionaire Sheikh's mind, a dark thread weaving through his thoughts with relentless insistence. Inside the palace, the air felt heavier than ever. The marble pillars rose like silent sentinels, their cold surfaces reflecting the flickering candlelight that barely softened the oppressive silence. Jewel-studded tapestries hung from the walls, shimmering faintly under the glow of crystal chandeliers. But even this splendor failed to reach the barren space growing inside the Sheikh's chest. He paced restlessly in the chamber reserved for private counsel, the scent of jasmine and oud wrapping around him like a fragile veil. Each breath was a battle between the duty imposed by his title and the fragile hope sparked by his brief encounter with Layla. Her image haunted him, the wary flicker in her eyes, the trembling of her hands, not from weakness, but from a fierce determination to survive. The market is a stage for more than just commerce. The chief advisor's voice broke through the thick silence. His eyes, sharp as desert knives, fixed on the Sheikh, with a mixture of warning and curiosity. "Your presence won't go unnoticed, especially not your kindness." The Sheikh's fingers tightened around the fabric of his keffiyeh. "Kindness is a currency far harder to spend than gold," he said, voice low yet firm. "And it's a risk I'm willing to take." Outside, the city was settling into the cool embrace of night, its towers piercing the darkening sky like stars fallen to earth. But within the heart of the emirate, a storm brewed, quiet, invisible, yet inevitable. Layla moved swiftly through the labyrinthine alleys of the souk, her basket clutched close, as the voices of merchants and buyers rose and fell around her like waves. Though exhaustion draped over her shoulders like an unbearable weight, her spirit refused to bow. Each step she took was driven by a fierce love for her children, their laughter a fragile shield against the harshness of her world. Her mind churned with questions she dared not speak aloud. Why had the Sheikh sought her out? Did he know the depth of the world she inhabited? The hunger, the fear, the quiet desperation? Or was it simply a fleeting impulse, a moment of pity, soon to be forgotten among the palace's silks and gold? She paused beneath a worn awning, the fragrant scent of spices mingling with the dust and sweat of the crowded market. The bag of coins in her basket felt heavier now, weighted with possibilities and peril. Back within the palace walls, glittering chandeliers cast shimmering patterns on the polished floor as the Sheikh entered the grand hall. Tonight's gathering of the elite was a careful dance of power, smiles hiding agendas, eyes measuring loyalties. Amir, the Sheikh's closest confidant, appeared by his side like a shadow shaped from ambition itself. His gaze flickered with a dangerous eagerness, as if tasting blood beneath the velvet. "Your public acts of generosity are more than charity," Amir murmured. "They unsettle the court and the enemies we have yet to unmask. Compassion in our world is weakness, Sheikh." The Sheikh's eyes darkened, the flicker of vulnerability retreating beneath a mask carved from steel. "Compassion is the armor that no enemy can pierce," he responded quietly. "Or it must be." As words passed between them, the tension thrummed beneath the polished veneer of the gathering. Every whispered allegation and veiled threat was a blade waiting to strike. Meanwhile, Layla returned to her modest home, a sanctuary of faded walls and trembling candlelight. Her children's breathing was a fragile symphony, gentle and trusting in sleep. Around her, hardship was a constant companion, but tonight, a single ember flickered. Hope. She placed the coins carefully on the table, each one a promise, each one a question. Could a man like the billionaire Sheikh truly bridge the impossible gulf between their worlds? Or was she simply a pawn caught in a game far beyond her understanding? Later that night, beneath the vast expanse of stars, the Sheikh sat alone in the private council chamber. The sealed letter lay before him, its embossing glinting ominously, a crest that spelled doom in elegant script. His heart pounded with a gravity that no fortress of wealth could deflect. "What you do not know will destroy you, Sheikh," the voice echoed in his mind, the warning carried by the cruel smile of the shadowed stranger. And as the palace exhaled into silence, the Sheikh's breaths grew shallow, because the secret within that letter was not just a threat to his throne, but a force destined to shatter every fragile hope he had dared to kindle with Layla. Outside, beneath the cool desert night, Layla's world lay on the brink of ruin, and the collision of their lives was no longer a question of if, but when. The sealed letter lay unopened on the polished mahogany table, its weight heavier than the finest gold the palace could house. The billionaire Sheikh's gaze flickered from the intricate crest embossed on its surface to the flickering candlelight, shadows dancing across the walls like silent conspirators. Every breath he took seemed stolen by the chilling truth whispered. In the stranger's cruel warning, what you do not know will destroy you. His hands trembled briefly, a rare and unwelcome crack in the armor he wore so meticulously over years of power and isolation. The chamber around him, scented with the deep richness of oud and jasmine, closed in, turning from sanctuary to prison. Wealth and influence meant nothing here, nothing at all, against the storm brewing in ink and secrecy. Outside, the city of Dubai glittered under the blanket of night, its relentless pulse kept by millions unaware that destinies were shifting in the shadows. Yet within the fortress of alabaster and gold, the Sheikh felt an unfamiliar vulnerability, a gnawing fear that clung to his bones. He rose abruptly, pacing with restless steps, his cloak whispering against the marble floor. The image of Layla, the worn basket, the tired but defiant eyes, the trembling hands clutching coins, would not leave his mind. She was more than a fleeting mercy given in a crowded market. She was a fault line, threatening to crack the foundation of everything he believed his life to be. A knock at the door drew him back to the present. His chief advisor entered, a man as sharp and unimpeachable as the desert sun at noon. His eyes, keen and unyielding, paused on the letter. "The letter you received," the advisor began, his voice velvety but hard-edged, "is not merely a threat. It carries the potential to unravel long-held secrets. Our enemies grow bolder, Sheikh, and your unexpected acts of compassion have drawn attention where you least desire it." The Sheikh's jaw tightened. "It is precisely because of that compassion that I will confront what comes next." His voice was low, but beneath it lay a concrete resolve. "We will not be undone by shadows." The advisor inclined his head, but the warning lingered in his eyes, like an unspoken command to tread carefully. Far from the palatial towers, Layla's humble home was a fragile world held together by love and quiet desperation. The flickering candlelight cast faint halos on the worn faces of her children, asleep in fragile innocence. Their breathing was steady but shallow, not from peaceful dreams, but from the fragility of their existence. Layla sat at the rough wooden table, her fingers tracing the cool metal of the coins the Sheikh had left her. Despite the comfort the money promised, a storm churned within her. How much could she trust a man woven of gold and power, yet seemingly touched by kindness? Was he a rare exception, or a player in a game where she was merely a pawn? She looked toward the narrow window, where the stars pierced the darkness like distant lanterns. Her thoughts tangled between cautious hope and gnawing fear. A life with the Sheikh might mean escape and security. But what price would be exacted for crossing into his world? Her resolve hardened. She could not afford illusions, only truths, and the stubborn strength to face what was coming. Back in the palace, the grand hall shimmered under the reflected glow of countless crystal chandeliers. Tonight's gathering was a masquerade of silk, power, and whispered agendas. The elite circled one another like desert predators, each mask hiding desire, ambition, and betrayal. The Sheikh moved among them, his posture carved by years of command, yet his mind was a tempest. Amir, his closest confidant, and the shadow behind many moves, sidled beside him with a calculated smile. "The ripple you caused in the market will be a wave soon enough," Amir murmured, voice low and thick with menace. "Our rivals sense weakness. Your defiance of court protocols, your charity, has unsettled the delicate balance." "I choose my battles," the Sheikh replied curtly, muscles taut beneath his silk cloak. "Compassion need not weaken us, it can steel us." Amir's smile sharpened. "Be wary, Sheikh. Not all will see it as strength. Some will exploit it." Before the Sheikh could answer, a sudden hush fell over the hall. Whispers curled through the room like smoke as a courier appeared, his face pale as the moonlight, seeping into the vast windows. In his hands, a sealed scroll, its crest unmistakably the same as the letter delivered earlier. The courier's eyes flicked to the Sheikh, and without a word, the scroll was handed over. With trembling fingers, the Sheikh broke the seal. The words inside carved cold lines of fate into his heart. They spoke of betrayal hidden beneath loyalty, of a secret kept by the closest blood, a lineage shadowed by scandal, a claim to the throne that was never his to wield. The room seemed to tilt, the chandeliers blurring into halos of light as the full magnitude of the letter's revelation crashed down. His breath caught, pain and disbelief warring fiercely. The very foundation of his identity, the legacy passed through generations, now questioned by blood itself. A whisper escaped his lips, barely audible. "No, this cannot be true," yet the proof was undeniable. In that moment, a quiet resolve took root, fierce and unyielding. The Sheikh would confront this betrayal, not only to protect his throne, but to protect the fragile hope kindled by Layla's quiet strength, the hope he had dared to embrace against all reason. He folded the letter carefully, hiding it beneath the folds of his cloak. Outside, the desert wind swept through the palace gardens, carrying the scent of jasmine and impending change. And in the distance, the market's restless echoes stirred once more. But the greatest storm was yet to arrive, because within the palace's gilded walls, a new player had just awakened, a shadow from the past, ready to claim a destiny entwined with the billionaire Sheikh's very soul. And this time, even the deepest fortress of gold could not shield him from the coming tempest. The next morning unfolded beneath a sky brushed with pale amber and the gentle sigh of a waking city. Within the palace, the billionaire Sheikh stood at the vast window of his chamber, the glittering Dubai skyline scrimmed by folds of early light. Yet even the radiant sun struggled to pierce the shadows that clung to his thoughts. The letter, a civilized weapon etched with betrayal, rested heavily in his mind, its poison seeping into every silent moment. His fingers traced the intricate patterns of the windowsill, cool marble against restless skin. Layla's image tugged insistently at his conscience. The worn basket she carried, trembling hands clutching coins that were life itself, not mere currency. Compassion warred with caution deep inside him. This world they inhabited was galaxies apart, jagged edges of gold and dust, privilege and survival grinding relentlessly against one another. A soft knock stirred him from the silence. The chief advisor entered, eyes as somber as the desert night. "Your Majesty," he began carefully, "we have reason to believe the letter is but the surface of a deeper conspiracy." The court grows restless. Shadows move where light once reigned. The Sheikh's jaw set in a line of iron. "Then we shall meet darkness with unyielding resolve. No secret will unravel what I hold dear, least of all the fragile hope kindled by that woman." Outside the palace, the city's pulse quickened. Layla, unaware of the storm swirling behind gilded walls, moved through the morning market with the quiet determination of a mother carrying the weight of the world. Each step was a negotiation, with vendors, time, and a future undefined. Yet the coins the Sheikh had given remained nestled safely beneath the folds of her scarf, a secret talisman against despair. Her thoughts were a tangled web of gratitude and fear. Was this mysterious benefactor a rare breath of mercy, or a prelude to a game she could not comprehend? The gulf between their worlds yawned wide and intimidating. But something deeper, almost forbidden, blossomed, a fragile connection refusing to be dismissed. The afternoon sun cast long shadows over the palace gardens, where fountains whispered ancient secrets beneath swaying palms. The Sheikh wandered there, a solitary figure swallowed by towering white pillars and the intoxicating scent of jasmine blending with the desert breeze. Every burst of color, every shimmer of silk, was a reminder of the isolation cloaked in his crown. Amir appeared silently at his side, a serpent coiled beneath a velvet facade. "The court watches your every move," he murmured, voice slick with insinuation. The whispers about Layla grow louder. Some see vulnerability, others opportunity. You risk everything. The Sheikh's gaze sharpened, icy resolve cutting through the haze of doubt. "I know what I risk and what I stand to gain." Later, far from the velvet curtains and marble floors, Layla sat by the flickering light of a single candle, the faces of her sleeping children etched in the shadows. Her soul ached with the burden of secrets she dared not share, the timid hope growing stronger but unspoken. She touched the coins again, breath catching on a fragile dream. That night, the palace was a symphony of glittering chandeliers and whispered intrigues. The billionaire Sheikh moved through the throng of courtiers, his mask flawless. Yet behind it flickered the ghost of vulnerability, raw and unguarded. The sealed letter weighed heavily beneath his breast, an anchor pulling him toward truths long concealed. In a secluded alcove, a figure watched with eyes like sharpened steel, the sharp-eyed stranger whose cruel smile had first shattered the fragile peace. "The past does not rest," he whispered into the thick air. Suddenly, the doors burst open. A courier staggered in, clutching another sealed parchment. The crested emblem was unmistakable, a challenge, a reckoning. The Sheikh's heart thundered as he reached for the scroll. hands steady despite the storm inside. Breaking the seal, his eyes devoured words that spun webs of dark revelation. Allies hidden in enemies' skin. Blood ties tangled in webs of deceit. A claim to power denied but unforgotten. The chamber trembled with the weight of betrayal. But amidst the ruin, the Sheikh's spirit blazed with fierce determination. This was no ending. It was the crucible where he would forge a new destiny. One that might unite the fractured worlds of opulence and struggle, power and love. And as the distant desert winds howled like a prelude to war, a single truth echoed in the silence. The greatest betrayal was yet to be unveiled, and it would strike closer to the Sheikh's heart than any had dared imagine. The morning light filtered through towering windows, casting long, fragile shadows across the marble floors of the palace. The golden hues danced with an eerie stillness, as if the very walls held their breath. The billionaire Sheikh stood motionless by the vast veranda, the weight of the sealed letter pressing in on him more heavily than the desert heat that awaited beyond the gardens. His gaze wandered over the sprawling cityscape beneath, where glass towers pierced the sky and life surged onward, blind to the tempest brewing in the heart of this empire. The silks, the gold, the endless loyalty bowed by fealty felt suddenly brittle, like a palace of sand ready to collapse with the slightest shift. His voice, when it finally broke the silence, was a whisper laced with iron. Betrayal is the darkest desert storm, relentless and consuming. A soft knock took him back from the edges of his spiraling thoughts. The chief advisor entered, his expression a mask of controlled severity. "The court's murmurs grow louder, Your Highness," he said, eyes sharp as falcons. "Your appearance in the marketplace, your mercy toward the commoner, Layla, it unsettles the delicate balance. Enemies see cracks where none were before." The Sheikh's fingers clenched, the rare tremor of anxiety fading beneath a resolute flame. "They mistake compassion for vulnerability," he replied, "but it will become our greatest weapon." Behind closed doors, Layla awoke to the first tentative glow of dawn, weaving through the threadbare curtains of her modest home. The dim room was cool, the scent of dry earth mingling with the faint aroma of cardamom from yesterday's market stall. Her 3 children lay entwined in a fragile peace only the innocence of sleep could grant, their chests rising and falling with fragile certainty. Her fingers trembled as she touched the small bundle of coins tucked beneath her scarf, the mysterious gift still a warmth against the coldness of her reality. The market's clamor felt distant now, a symphony of struggles and barter, while inside her heart an unfamiliar pulse quickened. What did the Sheikh see in a woman like her? Was it pity, curiosity, or an unspoken knowing that stirred something buried deep within his soul? Every flicker of hope was tempered by the sharp edges of doubt. Her world was one sculpted by hardship and pride, and stepping into his realm meant risking everything, even her dignity. Later, the palace shimmered under a pall of tense glamour. As courtiers drifted through the grand hall, their silken robes brushing like whispers against polished marble. Crystal chandeliers hung like frozen stars above, casting rainbows across faces, cloaked in carefully cultivated masks. The Sheikh navigated through the sea of schemers, with the grace of a man accustomed to command. Yet beneath his pristine exterior flickered an unease born of fragile hope. Beside him moved Amir, his closest confidant, the deadly serpent coiled in soft velvet. "Your kindness to Layla has stirred a tempest, Sheikh," Amir murmured, voice a venomous caress. "Whispers now speak of soft hearts where ice should reign." The court watches. Patience thins. What you see as strength, others see as weakness to exploit. The Sheikh's dark eyes bore into Amir's. Compassion is not weakness. It is the fire that tempers the steel we wear. Before the words could settle, the thick oak doors opened, admitting a courier whose face bore the ghosts of sleepless nights and urgent dread. In his hands rested a sealed scroll, the emblem identical to the letter that had shattered the Sheikh's calm days before. The room settled into a heavy silence as the Sheikh accepted the scroll with steady hands. The seal parted under his fingers, revealing words that tore through the fragile veil he had woven around himself. The message spoke of blood that was not as it seemed, of shadows that longed to claim a throne not rightfully theirs. A secret lineage hidden under layers of lies and forgotten oaths. His breath caught, the truth hammering against his chest like a relentless drumbeat. The empire he had molded, the legacy he had protected, lay trembling on the edge of ruin. Yet beneath the fury and disbelief, a cold ember kindled, a fierce determination to fight the darkness that dared threaten everything he held dear. That night, the palace felt unbearably vast. Silken curtains fluttered like silent tears across moonlit windows, and the scent of oud hung thick in the still air. Alone in his private chamber, the Sheikh folded the letter carefully, hiding it beneath his cloak as if guarding a wound exposed to the world's fiercest winds. His mind returned again and again to Layla, her quiet strength, the defiance etched into every line of her weary face. She was a paradox in his life, both a beacon of fragile hope and a harbinger of unpredictable change. Far below, the market square pulsed with life, oblivious to the danger that stalked the palace halls like a dark shadow. But the Sheikh knew the truth. No fortress of gold or power could shield him from the storm that now gathered. The betrayal was only the beginning, and as the moon slipped behind clouds, a whisper of a past long fought buried began to stir, pulling him toward a reckoning more personal than any the empire had ever witnessed, because the secret concealed in that letter was only the first tremor. The real earthquake was yet to come. The first rays of dawn filtered through the intricate lattice work of the palace windows, scattering shards of amber light onto the polished marble floor. The billionaire Sheikh stood alone in the quiet grandeur of his chamber, the weight of the sealed letter still anchoring his heart to a cold reality he had hoped to evade. His eyes, sharp and restless beneath the dark keffiyeh, followed the city stirring beneath him, its ceaseless energy a cruel contrast to the turmoil gnashing within his soul. He traced the ornate patterns etched into the windowsill, the cool stone grounding him amid the tempest. Layla's face, etched in. His memory, like a fragile relic, hovered ever present. The woman who carried burdens far heavier than gold, yet bore them with a quiet dignity that defied his world of power. Each breath he drew was a battle between duty and desire, between the chains of tradition and the fragile hope that person. His fingers flexed against the folds of his cloak, craving the certainty of control that slipped like sand through his grasp. A soft click echoed as the door opened, and his chief advisor stepped inside. The man's eyes, cold and discerning as the desert hawk's, fixed intently on the Sheikh's shadowed countenance. "Your Highness," he began steadily, voice low enough not to disturb the fragile silence. "The court stirs uneasily. Your appearance in the marketplace and your unexpected generosity toward Layla raise more than gossip. They breed suspicion." The Sheikh's gaze narrowed. "Suspicion is a blade, double-edged. Let them look carefully. They may find steel beneath the softness." The advisor's lips pressed into a thin line. Compassion is not the currency warlords value. Enemies gather where vulnerability seems to glow. He turned away, the heavy scent of jasmine trailing behind him like a warning. Alone again, the Sheikh allowed a brief flicker of doubt. Vulnerability was an unspoken sin in his realm. Yet in Layla's trembling hands, clutching that small bag of coins, he glimpsed a power foreign and profound. Far below, Layla wove through the crowded alleys of the souk, the marketplace alive with the riot of colors and cacophony of voices. Her worn basket, now heavier with provisions but still lighter than her heart, swung at her side like a silent companion. Exhaustion clung to her like a second skin, but her steps were driven now by something beyond mere survival, a fragile thread of hope spun from a glance, a gesture, a kindness that shattered the borders between their worlds. Her thoughts chased one impossible question. Why him? Why now? Was his generosity just a fleeting spark to be snuffed out by the crushing realities she faced daily? Or was it the ember of something more, something real and dangerous? Beneath the layers of shrouded streets and dim lantern light, Layla's fingers traced the outline of the coins hidden beneath her. Scarf, their weight both promise and peril. Her breath hitched as footsteps approached. A figure cloaked in authority stepped into view. The sharp-eyed man from the market lingered in the shadows once more, his gaze hungry with ill intent. Panic nudged at her resolve, but she squared her shoulders, meeting the dark look head-on. She would not crumble, not tonight. Back within the palace, the grand hall was suffused with a starry glow from multitudes of crystal chandeliers, their shimmering reflections casting fractured light across faces carved from ambition. The air was thick with whispered schemes and alliances forged in half-truths. The billionaire Sheikh navigated this sea of power with practiced ease, though beneath the surface, a storm clashed. Amir appeared at his side, a serpent, in refined silk, His smile was a slow blade, sharp and subtle. "Your charity unsettles the throne, Sheikh. The court murmurs of softness where it expects ice. You tread on dangerous ground." The Sheikh turned to face him fully, eyes dark and resolute. "Compassion is no weakness, Amir. It is the fire that forges true strength." "Yes," Amir smiled, his voice low and venomous. "And fires also draw predators." The words carved a cold shiver through the room. Before the tension could thicken further, a courier entered abruptly, pale and breathless, clutching a sealed scroll bearing the same embossed crest that haunted the Sheikh's recent nights. The murmurs hushed as the envelope was offered. With slow, deliberate fingers, the Sheikh broke the wax seal. The script inside bled betrayal, revelations of concealed bloodlines, whispered treacheries, and claims to the throne that threatened to crumble the foundation of his reign. His breath faltered. The magnificent empire he had spent years building teetered precariously on the edge of ruin, not from outside enemies, but from the shadows within. His eyes lifted, burning with a fierce determination. If betrayal was the desert storm, he vowed to be the unyielding rock standing firm beneath its wrath. Night deepened around the palace, silk curtains fluttering like silent mourning across moonlit windows. In his private chamber, the Sheikh folded the letter carefully, tucking it beneath his cloak, as though shielding a fragile wound exposed to the world's fiercest winds. Yet his thoughts returned to Layla. Her quiet bravery, the soft fire that unsettled his carefully guarded control. Far below, in the slumbering city, the market's pulse beat on, indifferent and relentless. But the true tempest was awakening, a secret as ancient and dangerous as the desert itself, ready to strike. And as the moon vanished behind thick clouds, a whisper slipped across the palace halls. "The blood you trust will burn your kingdom to ashes." The night wrapped the palace in a cloak of shadows. Yet inside, the air shimmered with quiet turmoil. The billionaire Sheikh stood motionless, his silhouette framed by the moonlit window, gazing out over Dubai's sleeping skyline. Every sparkling tower seemed to mock the turmoil roiling within him. The letter lay folded in his hand, its heavy weight refusing to be cast aside. Secrets buried in ink and wax threatened to undo not only his reign, but the fragile hope that had begun to blossom between worlds so cruelly divided. His breath hitched as memories of Layla pulsed like a distant drumbeat against the walls of his heart. The woman who lived beneath the piercing sun and the coarse dust, whose trembling hands carried the weight of 3 precious lives, yet bore them with unwavering dignity. He saw her once more beneath the market's faded awnings, hesitant, proud, and defiantly unbroken even in fatigue. A soft, deliberate knock shattered the stillness. The chief advisor entered, his composed gaze sharper than the desert night, carrying unspoken warnings in his every measured step. "Your Highness," he said low, "rumors fester in the halls. Whispers of your kindness toward Layla have seeded doubt. The court grows uneasy at your distance from protocol." The Sheikh's eyes narrowed, the fire within him flaring. "Let them watch," he murmured. "Compassion is a weapon few wield with true strength. I'm not afraid to face the storm it brings." The advisor hesitated, then inclined his head. A silent treaty struck. "Then we must prepare. The shadows gather quickly. Enemies hunger, not just for your throne, but for any crack in your armor." Outside, beneath narrow streets alive with restless life, Layla moved swiftly yet cautiously, the coins resting beneath her scarf, burning softly against her skin, a talisman of unknown motives. Her breath caught with every glance, the memory of the Sheikh's eyes flickering in her mind, like a forbidden flame. In that unexpected moment of kindness, a thread had been pulled, unraveling the carefully constructed fabric of her solitude. The marketplace thrummed with life. Voices bargained fiercely. Spices blended scent and dust. But Layla's mind was elsewhere. Questions pricked at her. Was the Sheikh's gesture mere charity, or a sign of something deeper? Something dangerous? Could an empire's ruler see beyond the glittering veil of gold to recognize the fierce resilience of a woman who had weathered every storm? Her thoughts broke as a figure detached itself from the darkened alley. A man with eyes like knives, sharp and unrelenting. His gaze locked on hers for a shuddering moment, then swept to the figure of the Sheikh, watching from the edge of the crowd. The tension between them whispered of unseen threats, as if the very air carried warnings born from whispered secrets. Within the palace, the grand hall glittered, alive with veiled intentions. Courtiers in silks brushed past one another, their smiles polished shields for daggered schemes. The Sheikh moved through the throng with a practiced grace, though beneath his steady steps, his mind spun webs of uncertainty. Amir, ever the shadow to his light, leaned close. "Your mercy unsettles our allies and emboldens our foes. The court's whispers grow dangerous, Sheikh. What you call compassion, others see as opportunity." The Sheikh's gaze, cold and resolute, met Amir's. Strength can wear many faces. Compassion is no less potent for its softness. Before another word could fall, a hush rippled through the room as a courier appeared, breathless and pale, extending a sealed scroll bearing the same ominous crest that had haunted the Sheikh's recent nights. With deliberate calm, the Sheikh broke the seal. The script inside revealed threads of betrayal, more tangled and personal than even the darkest court intrigue. Bloodlines obscured by lies, alliances forged in shadows, and a claim to the throne that threatened everything he had built. The weight of the revelation crashed upon him like a thunderclap, shaking the granite foundation of his identity. The empire he believed eternal now trembled under the threat of betrayal born of blood. His hand closed around the letter, knuckles white against the fine fabric of his cloak. The room seemed to contract, the chandelier's glitter dimming under an invisible weight. Yet beneath the shock was a furnace of resolve, the fierce determination of a man who would face the storm head-on, not just to protect his throne, but the fragile hope embodied in Layla's silent courage. As the palace settled into uneasy quiet, swathed in the scent of oud and jasmine, the Sheikh's thoughts returned to her. the way her eyes, though clouded with worry, held an unspoken defiance. She was a beacon amid the desert's endless sands, a challenge to everything he thought he knew. Outside, the desert wind whispered through the gardens, stirring the palms like silent messengers. In the distance, the market's pulse beat on, indifferent to the tragedy and hope entwined within the palace's walls. But the calm was a mere prelude, because from the depths of that sealed message breathed a secret far older and darker than any men in silks or crowns, the shadow of a past clawing its way to the surface, poised to claim the Sheikh's very soul. And as the moon slipped behind thickening clouds, a single ice-cold truth whispered through the marble halls. The blood you trust most will be the hand that unravels everything. The morning sun broke gently over the sprawling emirate, casting warm hues that softened the sharp edges of the palace's majestic silhouette. In the quiet refuge of his chamber, the billionaire Sheikh stood, unwavering, the sealed letter now opened and lain bare upon the carved wooden desk. Its revelations, a heritage stained by betrayal, a throne threatened by shadows within, had shaken the very foundation of his being. Yet beneath the weight of deceit, a steadfast fire kindled renewal rather than surrender. The whispers of conspiracies that once haunted these halls now thinned, facing the resolute strength of a man who refused to be defined by secrets, but by the choices he would courageously make. He had summoned the court in the great hall, where tapestries of his ancestors loomed like silent witnesses to history in motion. There, before the eyes of those who sought to fracture his reign, the Sheikh revealed the truths with unwavering calm. He named the traitors, those who cloaked ambition in loyalty, and with unexpected grace, he pardoned those bound by old fears and misled by shadows. His voice resonated with the authority of a ruler, tempered by pain and compassion, a balance few could fathom. In the midst of steel gazes and stirred breaths, Layla entered the light, like dawn breaking through night's final hold. The doors that had long divided their worlds now stood wide, welcoming her humble strength, the fierce courage of a woman who bore the weight of her children's futures on trembling but resolute shoulders, met his gaze. A meeting not of worlds clashing, but souls intertwining. Their pasts, as disparate as desert sands and city gold, wove into a shared tapestry of hope and promise. The court watched with held breaths as the Sheikh knelt before her, not out of submission, but in reverence for the truth she had awakened within him. The walls, steeped in generations of power, embraced this moment of profound transformation. Together, they faced the gathered nobles, uniting in intention and resolve. The Sheikh's declaration was clear. The strength of a ruler was as much in his heart as his throne. His forgiveness was a beacon, not of weakness, but of magnanimity, calling forth a future not built on fear, but on trust and unity. Outside the palace, the city thrummed anew, oblivious to the battles fought in quiet chambers, and yet unmistakably changed by their outcome. The market, where Layla had once counted coins with trembling hands, blossomed beyond survival, as whispers of the Sheikh's compassion kindled new hope among its people. In the days that followed, the palace gardens bloomed with rare jasmine and vibrant blooms, symbols not just of opulence, but of life's delicate resilience. Beneath the spreading palms, the Sheikh and Layla often walked together, their conversations weaving plans and dreams undimmed by past shadows. In Layla's quiet world, now mingled freely within palace walls, promising a legacy rebuilt on hope and courage. The people saw not just a ruler, but a man reborn, one whose power was magnified by humility, and whose empire was strengthened by compassion. As twilight embraced the emirate, the Sheikh stood upon the palace balcony, the stars mirroring the jewels that adorned the night sky. Layla nestled close, her hand in his, a silent vow of companionship and courage. Together, they watched the horizon where desert met city, a border no longer dividing, but uniting. The past's shadows had been faced. The secrets that threatened to destroy had given way to truths that healed. And in that sacred silence between heartbeats, the Sheikh's spirit soared free, forever changed. At last, the lonely rhythm of his heart found its harmony, not in wealth or power, but in the quiet, enduring love that had blossomed against all odds. The palace, once a gilded cage, became a sanctuary of light where hope flourished, and two souls, bound by fate and courage, stepped forward into their shared destiny. The emirate, with its glittering towers and endless sands, held its breath no more, but sang with the melody of a love that had transcended the whispers of betrayal. In their united gaze, the future gleamed bright, an endless canvas ready to be painted with new tales of strength, forgiveness, and unbreakable bonds. And beneath the vast forgiving sky, the billionaire Sheikh and Layla found their forever.